At UNC Chapel Hill, often cited as one of the country's most beautiful college campuses, there is a prominent sense of
Classes
grief.
are canceled at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill today to allow students to focus on
an emotional week on the campus of UNC Chapel Hill.
University Chancellor Kevin Guskowitz writing bluntly, "We are in the middle of a mental health crisis, both on our campus."
This comes after authorities over the weekend found one student dead in a residence hall and received another call about an attempted suicide.
I'm Haley Cox. I'm a senior at UNC Chapel Hill, and last year was one of the worst years for my mental health. Between transferring colleges, the pandemic, and transitioning to online school, I've never felt so isolated and out of control. However, I knew I wasn't alone in this feeling. Eloise is a senior here at UNC, and her experience with mental health struggles during the pandemic mirrors mine.
During COVID, pretty much as soon as we were sent home, my mental health took a really steep decline. My only real interaction and thing going on in my life was retail, because online classes just felt like nothing. Like, there's no way to focus, at least for me. I had a really hard time focusing. Definitely didn't get as much out of them, and that lack of purpose and connection with other human beings definitely contributed to developing depression. It's just like my brain doesn't know how to interpret fear and danger anymore. It's just difficult. Well, that was fast. I'm greedy.
I feel like an old crazy cat lady when I crochet, because the cat usually comes and hangs out with me. And I feel like that's like a very, I mean, obviously, I guess crocheting and knitting can be the same, like, what's it called? Old lady activity.
Jessie is a junior who was in her first year at UNC when the pandemic hit.
So my experience with mental health during the pandemic at UNC, during the beginning, I will say I feel like definitely got really difficult and really hard. I reached out to CAPS for the first time. So I was a sophomore in my first full semester of the pandemic. We started it during my freshman year. And I feel like it just got really, I struggled a lot having to stay home with my family, feeling like I had lost kind of like a connection to my peers and to my classes. So I feel like at the beginning of the pandemic, I struggled a lot with depression, and I'm also, I have ADHD, so I feel like that definitely got worse at the beginning of the pandemic, which had kind of a different effect on the rest of my mental health, definitely made it harder. And kind of as we are nearing this later stage of the pandemic, I feel like it's been getting a little bit better, but I am still definitely experiencing more mental health struggles than I was before it.
Say hi. She said, I don't know where to look. Boop, boop.
So have you / CAPS seen an increase in student mental health struggles during the pandemic?
Have I seen an increase in students seeking out help and the symptoms that they're coming in with? I'd say yes, just anecdotally. I think people are facing different challenges because especially maybe freshmen and sophomores thinking about how they ended their high school careers in lockdown, and then going to a huge transition to a large public university, where you're meeting a lot of people that you don't know, and maybe you haven't used those skills of socializing or making friends in, like a year and a half. And so you're kind of having to start all over again. And that can be really anxiety inducing. And it can also be really isolating and cause symptoms of depression.
During the 2020/2021 school year, students' declining mental health was a growing concern. That all came to a head in the fall 2021 semester after multiple suicides and suicide attempts were reported on campus.
So I'm someone that has struggled for many years of my life, not currently, but in the past. I struggled a lot with suicidal feelings, suicidal ideations. So hearing that 4 separate incidents that we know about here on campus of students who felt so overwhelmed and made the decision to take their life and weren't supported. And so I feel like that it just was really hard for me to hear and really disappointing to see the university's response was to just keep sending out the CAPS phone number, which is not helpful, and things like that. But also, especially particularly, I knew one of the young men. I knew the young boy from Hojo kind of peripherally, I wasn't, super close with him, but I did know him. He went to the Chapel Hill Carborough City schools, and I did as well. And I have known, there's some people that are very close to me in my life who were close to some of the other people. And so I feel like that was just particularly difficult, was trying to personally grieve and watching my friends personally grieve in a time where we were all in such collective grief as well.
After the news broke, there was this feeling of contagion that I think other people have talked about before. And that, coupled with the underlying things that had been building, made it just this flashpoint where it felt like nothing else mattered for a good bit of time. And I'm speaking personally, but I've also heard this from other students. But yeah, I think that point was the flashpoint for students' mental health this semester, in that it marked how bad things had already gotten, and also in that one after another, it just got worse and worse, as an overall climate.
So what is CAPS doing to help students struggling specifically during this time? Is there anything new, anything different, just any new practices, anything like that?
In terms of this year, we have started, a contract or relationship with a service called UWill, which provides teletherapy for students. But I think just sticking to some of the things that we have known work. We offer, brief time-limited therapy here through the center. So not through UWill, with clinicians who are, here in this office. We help those students to get connected to therapists off campus who can meet with them in a longer term, more open-ended way. So I think we do a lot of things here, and I think we've tried some new things with COVID. But yeah, there's a lot of people struggling.
Frustrated by the inaction of the university, some students are searching for mental health resources beyond CAPS.
So Peer-to-Peer is a one-on-one virtual peer support organization with the option of remaining anonymous. So we have numerous trained responders who are essentially just that, peers who can listen to what people want to talk about. And the really big thing that Peer-to-Peer fills is that aspect of anonymity. Stigma about mental health is rampant, not at just UNC, but around the world and in various age groups. And so having the option to remain anonymous, but still being able to have somebody who understands what you're going through, who looks like you, who is like you, can really help normalize this idea of mental health and really help encourage people to ask for help. we've had students come talk to us about things from social isolation back during the pandemic and even today. So from social isolation to exacerbated mental health. So whether folks who were experiencing eating disorders or depression and anxiety, and sometimes just wanting to talk about the events that have happened on campus. How do they take care of themselves? How do they take care of their friends? And I think those are all things that I've struggled with as well. How do we check in on each other in an environment that doesn't really foster that?
There's a lot that UNC could do and I think needs to do. The biggest of which is giving more funding, more resources to CAPS. There's no way that they can physically handle the amount that there is to deal with on campus. Providing a place for on-campus therapy for every student who needs it would be a huge change. And that sounds like a lot when I say it, but it is something that other universities are able to offer. And also, we need professors to get on the same level. I've had most of my professors in social sciences and humanities be really understanding and willing to talk to students and help them out when they're struggling. For my friends who are STEM majors, it's like they're in an entirely different university where they do not care, which might not really be true of their internal feelings, but is certainly their policies. And we talk flippantly about how much it's like a weed out thing, but the result of that is that students who are struggling literally just get left behind. There's a lot.
I think UNC could do literally anything different than what they're doing now, and it would probably be better for the mental health of students.
Caitlin Yady, a writer for the Daily Tar Heel, has become increasingly frustrated with the university's lack of mental health support for students. This past October, after the events on campus, she wrote an op-ed detailing the university's inaction when it comes to student mental health.
As far as accessibility of classes and registration and just making the actual academic life as seamless as possible, I don't think UNC does a very good job of that, especially for first years and first generation students. Livability on campus, dealing with a lack of effective COVID protocols, the refusal of the university to actually take meaningful steps towards racial equity, the deprivation of resources for victims of sexual assault. Literally anything that the university does wrong has a negative impact on student mental health, and I don't think the university really recognizes that, but they're not mutually exclusive, they're not separate issues. So the university could literally do anything to show that it cares about students, and it would probably be better than what they're doing now. Is that too mean?
If you could say one thing to the university about students' mental health during COVID, what would it be?
I would say start doing things to show students that you care.
Our lives are worth more than anything else. Our happiness and our health is worth more than anything else.
They just need to take it more seriously and understand the urgency of what's going on. I just think that if the pandemic and this semester's events have not shown that, then I don't know what will.